This is the very first episode in my awesome arpeggio series. And basically what we're going to be doing throughout this series is we're going to be examining ways to play certain arpeggios and then ways to apply those same arpeggios. I think it's pretty meaningless to just learn shapes without learning how to apply them. So today what we're going to do is we're going to work through the major 7th arpeggio. And you can probably guess there's a lot of ways to do this, but we're really going to focus on 4 different ways to do it today. And after we teach each method, after we learn each shape, we'll try applying it to a jam track that I've provided below, which is essentially just 2 chords, all right? It's going to go G major and B flat major, and that's what the jam track is. And this is going to give you a lot of options to take the shapes that we're learning and apply them right away between just 2 easy positions, all right? So let's get into it. Major 7th chords are basically a root, a major 3rd, a 5th, and a major 7th. And we're going to start by doing it in G today, and the shape that we're going to learn just goes through all 4 of those notes right in a row. So we're going to have G, our root, all right? We're going to have our major 3rd, we're going to have our 5th, and we're going to have our major 7th, all right? So that's the shape that we're doing, and the way we'll be playing it today is we'll be sweeping it, all right? We'll do a downstroke here with our pick, and we'll hammer on our pinky, then we'll do 2 more downstrokes to our middle finger and our first finger. All right, so that's the way up the arpeggio. And then on the way down the arpeggio, we'll put our middle finger here on our octave, okay, which is our next G. And then we're just going to do a pull-off with an upstroke. And then we continue with another upstroke to our middle finger and another upstroke to our pinky. So if we put it together, we have a down, hammer, down, down, up, pull-off, up, up, down, 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 up, up, up. It's a very simple little shape here, and it happens to just be 8 notes, 1 E and a 2 E and a. So you can count 16th notes with this pattern very simply. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. All right, so once you've got the pattern down, what you want to do is do it in different positions. Try it way down low where your stretches are much bigger. Like if I was down here on B, that's going to be a much bigger task right there. It's going to be a lot more difficult. All right, but up here, up on C, for example, it's going to be a lot easier because the stretch is a lot smaller. What we'll do right away, though, is what we're going to try doing is a few times on G in 16th notes, and then a few times in B flat, which means just 3 frets up. So here's B flat, 13th fret, and I'll do the same pattern on B flat. You can see it sounds pretty cool without even the jam track in the background, but let's hear what it sounds like with the power chords underneath it. And this is how I would like you to practice it. It's just between those 2 chords for right now. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue on forward here, and we're going to talk about another way to play the major 7th arpeggio. We're going to stay in G, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm not going to play any other roots. So I'm just going to go my major 3rd, or my root, my major 3rd, my 5th, and my major 7th, but then I'm going to skip the following roots. So it's just going to be 3, 5, and 7 afterwards. And it's going to look like this. Here's my root, my major 3rd, my 5th, here's my major 7th, and then I'm going to skip my root right here to my major 3rd, here's my 5th, and here's my major 7th again. This is also a sweepable shape. I'm going to do a hammer on the bottom and a pull off on top, and what I get is this. All right. Pretty tricky. Your fingers are going to be doing a lot of work here, all right? But once again, this is easy to count. It's 12 notes total, so you can think of it as triplets. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. And that's exactly how I want you to practice this. So we're going to go back to the jam track again, and this time we're going to practice our new shape, sweeping up and down it while counting triplets. This should be a little easier because we're slowing down to triplets. It's going to be a little slower, but since it's a bigger shape, it's probably going to pose some new problems here for us. Let's give it a try. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4. All right? Pretty cool. You could also play this as 16th notes, but it's not going to fill up a full measure. It's only going to count 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a, and then you'll just be left hanging right there, which is still cool. You could do it in 16th notes once you sped it up, and then leave a little break, and then go to your next chord and play it as 16th notes and leave a little break, and that would sound like this. So taking the same idea and applying it as 16th notes. And that's, one of those things that we're going to want to try and do is always try and permutate something into a different variation. Even the 16th note patterns I'm showing you, try phrasing them as triplets or 16th note triplets. It's going to be a whole different world of practice, and it's going to give you a lot of stuff to work with. Moving on, this is going to be the hardest arpeggio shape that I think we're going to do. It is sweepable, but there's some hammer-ons in between and some pull-offs that make it quite a mess. This time we're going to just go through every single note of the arpeggio, root, third, fifth, major seventh, and then over and over again. And the shape I'm going to do here is going to look like this. I start with my hammer-on again. I do my pinky, my middle finger. Here's my major seventh, and I hammer on the root, but then I roll my middle finger to hit the next note. I get my first finger on here. I get my ring finger stretching way out, and then my pinky finishes up to get my next root. So basically all I did was add the roots in to the shape that we were just working on. And the whole thing together looks like this. Now, descending through that is a lot of trouble. I'm going to do my pull-offs. All right, so that's one upstroke, but I'm doing two pull-offs. Then my middle finger hits this note, and I kind of have to roll it to get to the third string. And then right there, I have to be ready for another pull-off if I want to do this with straight sweeping. You can pick these notes, but I think it's fun practice to do it with the hammer-ons and pull-offs as well. All right, so that's our full shape, and this one takes up an entire measure of 16th notes if you play it up and down. Take a listen. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. All right, makes it very easy to move around and try in different positions. Even just moving it next door is good exercise. All right, but this is definitely the hardest one for your fingers, and you have to go through a lot of variations with the angle of your fingers to get this under control because of the stretches. But even then, if we just do it as straight 16th notes, it'll sound great over our 2-chord jam track. Let's take a listen. All right, so I missed the last note there, but you hear it. Full measure of 16th notes all the way across twice, and then I switch 3 frets up doing the exact same thing, and it fits in there nice and easy. That's a really, really hard one to speed up, but it sounds great if you play it slow, and just as something like that, I think it's a nice little move to know. I want to show you one more shape that's completely different. This is not a sweeping shape. This is an alternate picking shape, and it's something that I first encountered in the Under a Glass Moon solo by John Petrucci from Dream Theater. And he played an A major 7th arpeggio in a really cool way that was very symmetrical, very consistent across, and I want to show it to you. And this one, what we're going to do, the way I like to think of it, is starting with your finger on the root on the first string. So if I put my first finger on G on the first string, which is right here, then I can kind of get a good starting point on how to play this arpeggio. And let's check it out here. I'm going to put my first finger here on G, and then I go up a major third with my pinky, and these are going to be the top 2 notes of my arpeggio shape. And I do these same 2 frets on the second string. All right, and right there, I've got part of my G major 7th arpeggio, all right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down 3 frets. It's a huge jump for something like this. We're going to come down 3 frets and do the same jumps here. I've got that same 4-fret jump right there. Now I'm going to descend 2 frets, and I'm going to come down my next string and do the same thing. So each one of these positions, I'm doing a 4-fret jump between my fingers, but what I have to do is I'm starting here on 15, and then I'm jumping down to 12, and then I'm coming down to 10. But it's going to be the same pattern every time, and those are all the notes of a G major 7 arpeggio. Very tricky to shift your fingers around like that, but it's cool because you get a picking pattern and something different. You're going to get some different ideas when it's arranged like this. And on the way back up. All right, and then of course what we're going to do in this track is we're going to move it up 3 frets to B flat, and we're going to do the exact same thing. All right, and there's our B flat major arpeggio. All right, so that's just going up and down in 16th notes like that, hearing what it sounds like. And obviously, everything that we've just talked about, we're just doing it 3 frets apart, but you should be doing these things in every sort of variation that you can possibly think of. Any time that you're playing in a jam or you're playing in a song and you see a major 7th chord coming up, realize that any of these shapes are applicable to that chord at that point in time. Sometimes it'll be appropriate to sweep that chord or that arpeggio. Sometimes it'll be appropriate to alternate pick it. Sometimes it'll be appropriate to just slowly go through the notes of that arpeggio. But here's 4 ways ways that you can do it when a chord like that comes up, and you want to collect as many variations of this as possible. Remember, 4 is not that much, okay? There's a million ways to do this, so I do encourage you, once you've got a grasp on these 4, look for other shapes and look for ways to apply them, and then find specific examples that you could apply them, like a jam track like the one we're using, or in songs of your own choosing. Look for the major 7th chords, and then try and inject these into your playing when you're playing over those chords. Okay? So there will be more of these to come. Please leave comments if you have any specific requests on arpeggios to do, but I'm basically looking for things that sound cool when you're playing them, and then also how to use them in context. So I hope this helps you get started into arpeggios, and I will be referring back to this lesson when we encounter things in the future, major 7th arpeggios. So, see you soon, and thanks for watching.